Welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I'm your guide and host through the show. Today is our monthly series called Unpopular Real Estate Opinions with Chris Linsell. Chris Linsell is a real estate technology analyst, and he is also a director of content at large. He specializes in new solutions to old questions, constantly exploring the cutting edge of technology in the real estate space. Chris also has many years of experience as a licensed realtor in the state of Michigan and has worked as a marketer, digital strategist, and a trainer for major national brands like Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of Michigan and Coldwell Banker Schmidt Realtors. Chris is currently the director of content with Luxury Presence, and Chris will be speaking at the NAR convention coming up next week, I believe.
I'll be there next week, baby. Come find me.
And to find all of Chris's speaking engagements and to connect with him on social media, go to his website, chrislinsell.com. That's 2 L's on Linsell. We'll have a link to that in our show notes. Chris, welcome once again.
DJ, good to see you. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. It is the
we're
day.
here.
It's the day after the presidential election. So I thought we should, without going into our personal feelings about the results, maybe just talk about a little bit about how it may affect agents, or what we think, how we think it might do to the housing market. But I will say this just at the top, Chris and I were talking about this ahead of time, is that I assume everyone listening here is not the kind of person that would do this, but if you are, maybe give it a second thought before posting anything on social media today when emotions are high about your particular feelings. I was looking at the popular vote because I was curious at who actually won the number of votes versus the Electoral College. And it's about 50-50. So keeping in mind that about half the country voted one way and the other half voted a different way, I would think in this market, which is a challenging market, to alienate anybody based upon your political beliefs, that's a risk that you should consider whether it would be a smart idea to take. My personal opinion is, why alienate people? But that's your decision. So just be mindful of that. Things on social media do live forever, and I've seen some pretty extreme posts already from agents who are also running their business to some degree on social media. So just be mindful of that, everybody, and make decisions that a year from now, as you look back, you would say, "Hey, that was a smart play." So anyway, just a little top of the morning or top of the podcast suggested.
I would say, I think that's an important message, DJ, and I want to add to that idea the following thought process that I encourage real estate professionals to walk themselves through. If you've listened to the show before, you've heard me wax poetic about how outlets like social media have become what I call verification marketing in the flywheel that is the real estate marketing machine. And what I mean by verification marketing is this is a place where your clients and your prospects and the people who you are being referred to and other community leaders and business professionals who you want to network with, this is the place, social media, where all of those people are coming to verify that you are who you say you are and that you can do what you say you can do. And to some degree, in uncomplicated times, what that often it results in is them seeing that, yes, you do have experience selling condos on the Gold Coast, or yes, you do have experience working with first-time home buyers who want to actually consider a duplex and rent one half of it and kind of house hack their way into their first purchase. That in a simple universe is what they are verifying there. But in reality, in the universe we actually live in, especially in a day and age where real estate consumers have a lot of choice between who they work with, many clients are also looking to verify that who they are working with aligns with their personal set of values and must-haves. Not to borrow, a phrase from cheesy kind of real estate speak, but what's your list of must-haves? There are definitely consumers who have must-haves on their list for who they work with that don't include only your real estate experience.
Right.
And so be mindful of the fact that whatever you share on social media is a component of the verification, the book of verification that your clients will use to determine whether or not you're a good fit for them. Apart from that, I would also encourage folks, as you're thinking about the sorts of political messaging that is important enough that you share it with your community, is to think about, as a professional, what are the things that a donut shop could say online that would cause you to say, you know what, I'm not going to get donuts there anymore?
Right.
That in itself, just to kind of go through that exercise, to think like, what are the things that that donut shop could say online that would cause me to choose to go somewhere else for my donuts? Donuts are a couple of bucks a piece. The threshold there is going to be or excuse me, not the threshold, the ramifications, like
Much more significant
M
for
much
realtors.
much more significant when your donuts that you're selling are actually the 10, 20, $50,000 commission checks that you might be getting on, say, a luxury property. So think to yourself, like, if you're considering whether or not this donut shop has crossed the line, you're running your own donut shop here, guys. So don't lose sight of the fact that, for better or worse, as real estate professionals, we are not just in sales, we are in community. And if you choose to build a community that only incorporates a certain political view, you are choosing by default who you're not going to include in that community. So be thoughtful about that.
Yeah, inclusivity, I think, is an idea that should work for the effectiveness of getting more business. So if we
Mhm.
just look at, if I include, if I try not to exclude a certain part of the population because, and again, it's a personal decision. If you feel strongly you don't want to work with people who have certain beliefs, that's fine, but they're going to do the same thing to you, right? So
Mhm.
what you want to do is really be mindful of, yeah, like Chris said, I own a store, even though it's maybe not a true brick and mortar. My business is a store, and do I want to dissuade people from coming in
Mhm.
based on a belief about politics that may or may not even be directly related to my business?
Yeah, 100%. And like, let's excuse me, let's game this out a little bit. If you're a team leader or you are a managing broker and you've got people that work for you, you don't just have customer considerations here. You got people who are also a component of your success by virtue of the business that they bring in. You may alienate one direction or another by choosing to use those platforms that are professional verification tools for personal messaging. So, this kind of actually leads DJ into what I was hoping we could talk a little bit about today. Whenever there are big um, cultural shifts, like the one that happened yesterday via the presidential election, for in one direction or another, whether you think it's a good or a bad, it's always a good opportunity to do just um a quick recap of not the subjective, not like what we believe is whether or not this is good or bad, but to look at the objective signposts that are in the ground right now that are indicating the health, direction, and hopefully the opportunity in our markets.
Great.
Well, I want to start by just talking a little bit about a couple of statistics that have dropped in the last week or so. The first one, I want to talk a little bit about young and first time home buyers. The average age for first time home buyers has gone up significantly. We are now pushing 40 years old as the average age for the first time that Americans buy their homes. 38 years old is now the age. This is up significantly, even just over a year ago from now.
Yeah, last year it was at 35. And I remember when I first got into this business well over 10, maybe 14 years ago. Well, I probably saw this 10 years ago, was around 31 was the average age. So
Mhm.
it is creeping up.
Yeah,
And
big
now
time.
it's creeped it's not creeping up anymore. Now it's shooting up.
Shooting up. And in fact, the average age of a real estate seller in the United States is over 63,
Yeah,
which is, that's kind of a confusing and almost deceptive um, statistic because it accounts for a lot of different sales.
right.
But this age has increased over the last year by 5 years. It was 58, and now it's 63. And
Wow.
it does kind of lend itself to this overall trend that is really represented by the fact that now first time home buyers represent less than 25% of sides of real estate transactions in the United States. That's down from 32% in 2023. It's pretty wild.
So we're seeing less first time home buyers, and we're seeing fewer first time home buyers in the
Hmm.
last 12 months, and we're seeing the average age
Hmm.
of home buyers and sellers
Hmm. That's
rising.
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And it's important to think about the conditions that are making this reality. Okay. Uh, think about the market conditions. And of course, everybody's conditions are a little bit different. This is something important. People are sick of hearing me say this, but I'm going to just keep saying it because there's always going to be someone who's the first time you've heard it. Real estate is a micro market business. And we make the mistake often of talking about it in macro terms because that's what's easy to write about in the New York Times, the front page of the New York Times, or on CNBC. We talk about these big national averages, and that's nice for a soundbite. But real estate is a micro market business where what really matters is what's happening on the streets, on the individual blocks of the communities that you serve. But on large scale and generally happening in most markets, we have market conditions that are not favorable by any means to first time home buyers. Think about what's happening right now. Money is expensive. Mortgage rates, they have come down, but they are still historically high relative to the trends that we've seen in the last 5 years. Inventory is tight. Despite the fact that we have seen some loosening, there is still way too few houses relative to the amount of buyers that are actually in the field right now, right? So we have inventory that is tight. Money is expensive to borrow, so it reduces the buying power of first time home buyers, which is typically a limited amount of buying power to begin with. And because of these factors, many of the property owners of existing homes are holding tighter onto their properties because it doesn't make a lot of sense to sell them. What we see now is more and more. I bet you there is every realtor listening to this either knows somebody who is considered or is doing this. Instead of selling their current property because they've got a mortgage rate that is so favorable, they're going to just keep this bad boy and just try to rent it because they can definitely get more in rent than what they're paying in their mortgage and in their property taxes. If they're going to buy a new place, they're just going to wind up holding that second property and using it as a rental, which might be great for their wealth development, but it is not great at all for the housing market and outlook of people trying to enter the home ownership space.
Yeah. So, and we also had a couple of years of pretty significant inflation, which also affects people's savings
Hmm.
and their ability to save and ability to borrow. So, there's a lot of challenges
Big time.
for younger first time home buyers
Hmm.
that, and we're seeing them sort of it appears rejecting to some degree the idea of home ownership, or wanting it and not being able to. It's unclear, is there motivation to buy and is
Mhm.
just the conditions unfavorable, or is it that culturally we're shifting away from home ownership as a sort of assumed goal for
Yeah.
adulthood.
That's a great question, and the same study from the National Association of Realtors has quoted that multi-generational housing purchases are at their all-time high. 17% of residential single-family residential homes that were purchased or sold in the United States in 2023, in the first half of 2024, included some sort of component of multi-generational occupancy, which means we've got an adult child that's living here, or maybe grandma and grandpa are going to live with us here. That 1 in 8, that is an insane statistic relative to what the quote unquote American dream was just 30
Hmm.
or 25 years ago. And we've seen this play out too. Redfin did a study in February of 2024 around housing affordability as a political concern. 91% of Gen Z respondents to the study cited housing affordability not just as a concern, but as their top concern. That should absolutely set the alarm bells off for people, both from a market perspective, but also from an opportunity perspective. We have so many people who are thinking about this and worried about this. That is a prime opportunity for real estate professionals to develop expertise around meeting the needs that are coming from that worry. You will ingratiate yourself into those communities so fast if you have answers to the questions that population is asking.
That's really interesting. And I want to just define Gen Z, because I had forgotten exactly what the parameters were when we say Gen Z. So Gen Z is, we'll just go current ages in 2024. Gen Z goes all the way down to 12-year-olds up to 27-year-olds. So
Hmm.
it's a big swath, and these are going to be your future clients. And to your point, I think this multi-generational trend that we're seeing inside of single family individual homes is we're starting to see people moving back, or we've seen people move back, or passing along a home from generation to generation. I think that my guess is, in most markets, if generations have resided in that community, I would think it would be a really, really good idea to get in front of as much of the family as possible, and really immerse yourself in the community of the family.
Hmm.
Because again, there may be some home sharing, there may be some home. I mean, we see it here in Chicago all the time. We see families, have buy a 3 flat and their kids live in one of the units, or
Hmm.
they have a home and one of the kids is going through a tough time, so they move back home. Or the parents are elderly and the kids need to take care of them. This is very, very common, and what we're I think it's a really interesting play. I was talking to a friend of mine who was with ARIA, NAREP, the Hispanic National, the Hispanic Association of Real or Organ, sorry, the Hispanic National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals.
There you
That's what it
go.
is. Oh
You
my
got it.
goodness, my gosh. I technically I'm Hispanic and I couldn't get that out. But or I have a Hispanic name at least. But anyway, she was saying that this is what realtors who are not Hispanic don't understand about Hispanics, is that they make collective decisions here in the US around homes. The
Uh-huh.
whole family is involved in the decision most of the time. And 49% of all home buyers last year were Hispanic, or first time home buyers, rather. So that is an incredible statistic. So we're really talking about community getting involved and understanding sort of that it isn't just, you know, uh, you know, uh, 21-year-old, getting married and moving
Hmm.
out on their own.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk for a minute about what real estate professionals who are hearing this, what you can do to take this information and turn it into an opportunity for yourself in 2025. So a couple of things that I think are really important here. The first is, and man, I'm going to get some crap for this, even just in Boston at NAR next week. So if you're listening, NAR, I'm still excited to come. Don't cancel me. Um, there is a definitely better than 0% chance that there's going to be pretty significant changes to the National Association of Realtors policy around clear cooperation coming up very soon. I don't have any insider info on this, but my gut tells me we're going to have changes to clear cooperation that are going to affect the way that real estate professionals market properties, and it will likely give rise to private listing networks that are servicing specific communities. If you are in a housing market where there is um, a particular gap in the inventory and serviceability of first-time home buyers, this is a chance to use a shift that might happen on clear cooperation to either develop or to start planning how you can partner with other local professionals around private listing network access that is designed specifically to benefit first time home buyers. And I'm talking about, it can be something as basic as a group text chain. I mean, that is like the most basic iteration. And I'm not suggesting you do this right now because it's against clear cooperation and I want you to get in trouble. But you can be thinking about how you can benefit these specific underserviced and clearly in need portions of your market by virtue of developing the connections that they need in order to stay competitive and ultimately be successful. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing I want you to think about is, in light of the election season, there is a whole new swath of local representatives who hold some very important positions when it comes to determining a lot of stuff, including the planning for new construction and housing development. These are folks that have either been freshly reelected and are reinvigorated to continue to represent their communities and make good decisions based on what their communities need. Or, even better for you if you're a real estate agent, they're new to the job and they are looking for wins on how they can create value in their position so that the next time election comes around, they have a track record of positive movement to point to. These are folks that you can go to, and I have already. I have the list. I have the list of my locals right here of the new folks who are on the planning commission, who are the new drain commissioners, who are the new township trustees and representatives. These are folks who I want personal relationships with. And if you are a real estate professional, there are very few people whose personal relationship is more valuable than the drain commissioner, than the person who's head of the planning commission, than the person or people who are going to greenlight the new multifamily housing complex that is going to be that is proposed to be built on 5 acres of what was for a long time unused land somewhere. These are your people. And if if I could point to one thing that would be the most effective for supporting first time home ownership in communities and just generally loosening the grip that this tight inventory has on markets, it's new inventory.
Yeah.
New inventory is not going to come from a whole bunch of people deciding to put their existing home on the market right now. That's just not going to happen. That won't ever
Unless
be.
rates go down.
That's not going to happen.
It's
That's
not going to happen.
I will bet you. I will bet you my list right here.
I believe you.
That's just not going to happen. If it
I'm
does, that'd be great. But I'll eat my hat before that happens. Frankly, the most effective way is going to be infusing markets with new inventory. New inventory gets infused via new construction. New construction happens through the gates, through the permission gates of these local elected officials. You have a whole bunch of people who are brand new and looking to make a good impact and develop a positive image. Now is the time. Their phone numbers are public. Blow them up before your colleagues do, because you want to get on their in their good graces before anyone else does.
Yeah, and you want to know what their agendas are and what their goals are around housing.
Big
And
time.
if they're in alignment with your goals, and if you feel that their things are headed in the right direction, you can ask them, how can I support you? How can I help you create more opportunity in our area? And we're probably, like you said, we're probably talking about development. And in development, it's funny, sort of dovetails into a question I get all the time is, how do I get to work with developers? That
Mm,
sounds really cool. I'd like to, be the exclusive agent on a new development. Well, these are ways in which you can start to immerse yourself in that
mhm,
community, instead of always directly going just to the developers themselves and saying, pick me. I would, with Chris's suggestion, which is a wonderful suggestion, go to the government, the government affairs people, the people that
mhm,
actually, are do handle permits, handle
mhm,
zoning, and get a sense to say, hey, I'm a realtor in my area. I want to keep our micro market here thriving, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what the goals are of you, and what I can do to help you, and how can I encourage more people to live here, or develop property here.
mhm.
And that in and of itself is going to net you some very interesting conversations.
Totally, totally. And let me add one other thing, because I know that there were not the there were definitely more than zero ballot initiatives across major housing markets in the United States this month that included uh, the ability for homeowners to add accessory dwellings onto their single family home with much less restrictions. This was something certainly in the Midwest that we saw a fair amount of these ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which basically in layman's terms, it's like, can I put an apartment above my garage? This is an actual way to take your existing inventory and turn it into extra housing stock.
Mm,
It isn't something you necessarily would sell. You're not going to build a condo above your garage of your single family home and then sell just that condo, but you would turn it into a rental unit. Most of these, in my local market, turning these ADUs into rentals requires them to be long term rentals, not short term rentals. And even though that's not necessarily the solution to tight inventory for first time home buyers, it does relieve some pressure from the people who are looking to rent and can't find anything to rent. And so buying becomes an option for them. It does give those folks more options. It's just one of these realities that when you have a very tight housing market, the rental market tends to tighten as well. If you can loosen the rental market a little bit, the bottom of the housing market tends to loosen just a little bit too. It's not going to be enough that it's going to absolutely change the complexion of your local housing market, but if you are in a situation like many of us were not even a year or 2 years ago, where first time home buyers were facing competition against 10, 15, 20 different offers, even if you could reduce that by 20%, it would be a meaningful change for a lot of folks and hopefully reduce some of that frustration that they're feeling.
yeah, and going just sort of all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about how first-time home buyers are aging, they're getting older, and I think my instinct tells me, and again, Chris, you may need to correct me, but my instinct is telling me that there's just not a lot of education around the benefits of home ownership that the average 25-year-old may have encountered or learned. And I think what realtors can do at this point, since we know that, pricing right now, it's more difficult to purchase a home.
Mhm.
um, I think right now is the time to really start talking to younger people about the benefits of home ownership, why it can make sense, go through the numbers,
Mhm.
and really start to have those conversations. I would be talking to renters all day long right now,
Mhm.
getting them ready, saying, "Here, let's create a plan." Well, first of all, let's first make the case that home ownership is what you may want to do. If they're on board with that, now let's make a plan.
Mhm.
And once you make a plan, then you're their person. You just follow the plan, check in with them. I see that as, I would love to see that first time home buyer. Of course, all of us would, that age come down. And
Mhm.
the only way I think we're going to do that is through education, or if rates just drop, which they're not going to, most likely.
Mhm.
So I would think education is probably the way to go here.
Yeah, I agree completely. There is, for for better or worse, there is a lot of mediocre information on the internet right now about the benefits of homeownership. It's not that the benefits are mediocre. Literally, the information and presentation of that information is mediocre because we are experiencing this influx of artificial intelligence written content that is just, it's reading. These AI plans are reading the content that other AI plans have written, and just recycling it. Follow my advice from before and treat this topic as a micro market topic.
Yep.
What are the benefits that the buyers in your market could get if they turn from renter to buyer? What are the specific benefits that people who live in your community, not in my community, in your community,
Hmm.
that they could receive? If you can create a compelling case around that particular value proposition, you become the advisor, the pre-purchase advisor of a ton of different people who are like, "Well, yeah, I'm renting. I would love to be a homeowner. I'm not ready. I don't have the resources or the facility or the timeline to do so. But maybe in a year from now, you're going to get a lot of that. I guarantee you, most of the seeds that you plant are going to be long nurture seeds.
Hmm.
But imagine where your business will be if you continue to chug along doing what you're doing right now, planting a whole bunch of long nurture seeds, and then a year from now, when it's time to start harvesting, your transaction volume will be up 2, 3, 4, 10x relative to the number of those seeds that you have planted. Because the reality is, in most super tight first time home buyer markets, there are a ton of renters because they don't have any other place to go. If they
Right.
want to live there, they have to rent. I know for me, there are nearly as many rental units in my local community as there are homes that would qualify for first time home buyers, like in terms of the size and price point that they'd be at. So there are a ton of people that are waiting in the wings. Start nurturing those people by virtue of value propositions that make sense for them, not these generic messages that belong on PSAs before your local news.
And I would also add to that, team up with other businesses in your local market that are looking for the same consumer that you're looking for,
Mhm.
right? There's obvious ones that you can think of, but there are also, restaurants, there are clothing shops, there are retail establishments that need bodies to come into the store to buy things.
Mhm.
And if you can say to them, hey, I want to put more bodies in this neighborhood to come and support your store, can we work together on creating, some sort of educational movement to get people to want to move to this area, or certainly to develop here, or at least moving from renting to buying? Why
Mhm.
should they do it? People should have the information so that they can make the right decision. But what typically happens is people just keep renting.
Yep, it's
So
truth.
yeah. So I think it's a great place to wrap up. It's definitely a strange day in American history. We we've had a bunch of firsts today with the election, the 47th election, and very unusual day. So be mindful out there. Be kind. Be compassionate, and let's look for similarities, not differences. And let's
Mm,
remember we are in this to help people with their housing needs,
mhm.
and let's just be as kind as we can.
Yeah, agreed. Be as kind as you can. What a great way to
Oh,
end it.
be as kind as you can. And if you can't be kind, just just keep your mouth closed. That's the easiest way.
Seems reasonable.
That's what I would just recommend. Okay, well, for all things Chris speaks at all sorts of conferences
Mhm.
all over the country. He's going to be at the National Association of Realtors conference next week. Please go check out his sessions and let us know what you think of Chris's sessions. He is usually one of the favorite speakers there because of his predictions. Are you doing predictions again?
Actually, this year at the National Association of Realtors, I'll be speaking on what I call brand tech. The latest and the greatest technology tools that you can use to build a differentiated brand in 2025. So I'm gonna make some provocative predictions. I'm gonna call out some platforms as ones you should be using, even a couple that most people think they should be on, but you should absolutely not waste another second on. I guarantee you I'm gonna get a lot of people arguing with me about it in the chat and live afterwards. So come argue with me. I would love to hear from you.
And I will, if anyone from National Association of Realtors is listening to the show, please record these sessions and make
Mhm.
them available for members who can't attend, or who are unable to attend.
Yep.
Because I would love to promote that NAR. I'll promote all of those for you. You just get them up on the website. We'll hope that happens. But anyway, we will let Chris go. We will see Chris on the next episode. On behalf of everyone who is listening, we thank Chris for his time. Also, of course, Chris and myself, we thank everyone listening for their time. And as always, please leave us a review. Please tell a friend about this show and check out our sponsors. They're the reason we can keep doing these shows. We appreciate it. We will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, DJ. Talk to you soon.